One of the great things about MaterialX is you can transport your materials between applications and they'll stay looking the exact same, or pretty close. So I wanted to go over how we can go about doing this inside Houdini. So to start off here, we're just going to take a look at what I got in the scene, which is just a grid, stop create with some UVs on it. And that'll be important here in a second. But I'm going to put a material library down and wire that on up and set the display there. I'm just going to go ahead and assign this to our geometry there just by doing that. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop in to the material here. So to start off, we're going to only need to be using the material nodes, or the MaterialX nodes. So if I look into MaterialX here, there's a whole bunch of different things in here. But most notably, we need to make sure we're not using anyone specific to Houdini, which I think are these, because they don't transfer over to the other applications. They are Houdini specific. So let's go back in here. We're going to go create a surface material. And that's going to give us just our standard MaterialX surface. And we're also going to do MaterialX standard surface. And this is going to be the standard surface for MaterialX. So to get started, we're going to need our different maps. So let's do an image. So for MaterialX, it'll be MaterialX image. And we'll go ahead and select our file name, which I'm already in the folder. So this is just a material from Quixel's Megascans. So if you see this canyon rocky ground, this is what I'm using here. So I'm going to select the albedo for now. So to start off, you're going to need to make sure that you are setting the signature to whatever is appropriate for that specific node. So you can see here, if I hover over base color, that's going to be a color, which is going to be what we need here. So I'll go ahead and wire that into base color and just make sure you're set to Karma and you'll start seeing things update here. So I'm going to alt drag this out. And we're going to go select the roughness map here. So if I look at our specular roughness here, this is a float. You can kind of see specular roughness and then the colon float. Let's go ahead and make this wired up in there. And I'm going to leave this to color for now just so I can just show you kind of how to debug this if you're having some issues. So we'll leave that on color here. And then I'm going to go ahead and alt drag this out, and we're going to just bring in our normal map. And for MaterialX, we do need something else, so it'll be a MaterialX normal map, and we'll go ahead and wire that into the input here, and this out into our normal. And now we have some normals going on. So this is a little bit misleading. If you look here on this input, it is a vector 3 actually, it's not a color. So even though color has RGB channels, it is actually a vector 3. So you will want to set this to vector 3. I'm going to leave that for now just to show you. And then also this one for the roughness will be a float because this value is going to be a float as well. So just to illustrate some things here, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to export this out. So we'll go to right click and save MaterialX. And I'm just going to overwrite the canyon material that I have here. Now I'm going to jump over to Inclarisse just to illustrate that this can be brought between programs. So I'll come up to File, Import, and MaterialX, and we'll load in that MaterialX there. So once I load this in, you see that we have some errors that pop up here, and this is what I'm talking about here. So we have some mismatch types. So if I scroll over here, you can see vector 3, image 3, and just looking back at what we had, that is going to be our normal map. And if I scroll over here, mismatch types and port connection input, specular roughness, and this should be input name in. So if I go back to our Houdini here, our input name in is that, and obviously our specular roughness right there is what it's referring to for the mismatch on this first one. So you can see that it is a type float. And so now we know that we have a couple things wrong with this. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to Houdini here, and we'll go ahead set this roughness back to a float, and this normal map to a vector 3. And if I go back in here, and I save this back out, just reselect our canyon material, go back to Clarisse, and I should just be able to reload resources here, and we're not having any sort of issues. So if I assign this now, well, I guess we'll have to re-import it. So we'll go ahead and just re-import that in, and we don't have any issues that pop up. And you see now we have our material on our object. But you see it doesn't look the exact same. If I jump back in here, it's got some tiling going on inside of Clarisse. And Clarisse is a really good program to kind of debug things because they tell you, or it kind of tells you what's going on, and then it also shows you the proper way of doing things. So if you followed my other video on MaterialX inside of Clarisse, you know that most programs, or at least Clarisse, is going to need to use another set of nodes here to use the UVs. So all of these MaterialX inputs have these text chords. So let's go ahead and we're going to use a geometry property value. So that MaterialX geom prop value. And if you notice, if I hover over these, they are a vector 2. So we need to come to this and set this to a vector 2. Now the other thing we need to do here is set this to UV. And now I can go ahead and wire this on into our text chords. And we can go back to this and save it as our MaterialX. So go back to Clarisse, and let's go ahead and delete this out. And we'll just go ahead and re-import that MaterialX and reassign it. And now you see that we have our material, and it looks just like our material. And here, there's no tiling issues going on. It is working just fine, which is good to see. So, and actually, in Clarisse, we had to do a multiplication. So we had to multiply by a vector 2. So I actually didn't try this. Let's see what effect this has on our material. So we'll go ahead, set that to vector 2. It's already in there, and we had to set this value to a -1. Let's go ahead and set that and see what that does for our material inside of Clarisse. So we'll come back and delete that and import our material. And we'll throw that on here. And it looks like, actually, can't tell. I should have took a screenshot. Hey, future me here. So I tried this with a rock assembly from Megascans as well, and it looks like, so if you throw this -1 in here in Houdini, it's obviously going to flip things and make it not correct. And if I go ahead and try to just bypass this, it doesn't work. So that's something to note. But if I hop over to Clarisse here, if I have this set up properly with the -1 in there with this node in, you can see that everything lines up properly. And if I don't, then it's going to look all wonky. So let's go ahead, oops, not bridge. Let's go ahead, just re-export this out so you can see what it looks like without that. And we'll just save this MaterialX. We'll overwrite that, come back in here, just delete this off, and we'll come back and import that material and reassign it, and you'll see that it's all weird and things don't align properly. So at least this is at least Clarisse specific. It might be to other programs as well, but you might need to actually use this multiply to invert the Y value. So just keep an eye out for that. If you're having some issues with things lining up, you might need to go about doing that. With Clarisse, you might have to set the value to a -1 multiplied by a vector 2, because when you create a MaterialX material inside of Clarisse, it does need to be multiplied by a -1 in the Y value to have it properly use the UVs. I should have tried that with a different object, but I'll have to give that a shot and let you guys know. But anyways, this is how you go about setting up some MaterialX and transporting them over into some other programs. Little tip, don't go ahead and make this local and try to view your materials inside of Clarisse, because it seems to just crash Clarisse. So it's a bug, but for now, that's what we have to deal with. In the future, that will work, but for the early access, go ahead and just hold off on clicking that button if you don't want your scene to crash. But anyways, that is how you go about creating some materials inside of Houdini, MaterialX materials that is, and transporting them to other applications. So this is going to be the basis for a lot of things going forward. As far as I know right now, you can't expose parameters. At some point in time, you should be able to expose parameters and change the different things. So you should be able to set different color corrections and stuff like that inside of your material, and then expose those values and then use those inside of your other applications, whatever application you decide to use for rendering. But as of right now, I don't believe that is something that we can do. If there is currently in Houdini, let me know in the comments, but I haven't seen it. So anyways, hopefully this helped you out. This is getting started with MaterialX. It is a little bit cumbersome to get started, a little bit confusing. So hopefully this helped you out, and some good things will come out of MaterialX going forward as it starts to get adopted more. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I got a bunch of other videos on my channel, so make sure you check those out if you're interested in anything about Houdini, Inclarisse. I got some stuff on Redshift, Octane, Sema4D as well, so if you're interested in any of that, make sure you guys check those videos out. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.